So, when is the last time you invested in an ICO? Probably not very recently. It's safe to say at this point in 2019 that the ICO model is broken, if not completely dead, both from a standpoint of functionality as many ICOs failed to be listed, and from a standpoint of trust, as many ICOs failed to deliver on even the most basic promises. Clearly, the model had promise, being able to go out and fundraise to the world, but it was simply too flawed in its application. So in the interim, what if there was a different type of ICO, one that could address both the issues of liquidity and trust? Enter the IEO, or Initial Exchange Offering. So let's find out, is it worthwhile, or just a bad refresh of ICOs? Welcome to Ready Set Crypto. This is your brain on blockchain. So let's get started by defining what is an initial exchange offering. As the name suggests, it's conducted on the platform of a cryptocurrency exchange instead of being done by the ICO project itself. As the token sale is conducted by the exchange on the exchange's platform, the token issuers generally have to pay a listing fee along with a percentage of the tokens sold during the IEO, usually something around 10%. In return, the remaining public funds will be sold on the exchange platform, with the coins being listed immediately after the initial exchange offering is over. What's more, as the exchange is taking a percentage of the tokens sold by the cryptocurrency project, the exchange is incentivized to help the token issuer with its marketing and offering. So some of the main differences between an IEO and an ICO is that first, the fundraising is not done by the cryptocurrency project itself, it is done on the platform of the exchange. Second, the crowd sale counterparty is the cryptocurrency exchange instead of the project's developers. Third, the smart contract of the IEO is managed by the cryptocurrency exchange instead of the project conducting the sale. Fourth, the KYC AML is conducted by the exchange on its users, rather than the ICO conducting the KYC themselves. This leads to interesting possibilities, such as US citizens potentially being able to participate in an IEO. We also have to look at the potential field of offerings here. With ICOs, the barrier to entry is very low, which unfortunately led in a lot of scams and frauds. With IEOs, the projects are vetted by the exchange because, in part, their reputation is at stake with the IEOs they are listing. Finally, there's the point of liquidity. It's an unfortunate reality that the majority of ICOs fail to be listed on a single exchange after their crowd sale, effectively making them vaporware. In contrast, an IEO is guaranteed to be listed on the exchange that is conducting the initial exchange offering. So there is guaranteed trading potential. We can clearly see that this is the new trend in the cryptocurrency space among exchanges because the largest and most established exchanges out there have some sort of IEO platform at this point. You have the Binance Launchpad, you have the Bittrex International IEO, you have the BitMEX Launchpad, you have Huobi Prime, you have the KuCoin Spotlight, and you have the OKX IEO. So if all of the major exchanges are doing it, and there's clear advantages of an IEO versus an ICO, is this something that we should be considering? Well, obviously, nothing is black and white. I do agree that the notion that IEOs are more secure, better offerings versus an ICO is a pretty valid notion. You have clear advantages regarding trust, security, ease of listing, and it generally just makes sense for projects. We can see that there's real potential of these platforms and the advantages of an IEO. In January, BitTorrent initiated a token sale on Binance Launchpad and raised $7.2 million in less than 15 minutes. Meanwhile, you also have examples of the fact that this isn't just a cash cow for exchanges. We've already seen examples of exchanges enforcing their regulations and strict requirements. Recently, Bittrex announced that it had canceled its IEO for the Raid project a few hours before the start of the crowd sale. The reason for canceling Raid's plan to raise $6 million for its contributors was a terminated partnership between RAID and the e-gaming data analytics company op.gg. According to Bittrex, the partnership between the two companies was a vital part of the project, and once they were aware of the event, they decided to cancel the token sale as they believed it was not in the interest of Bittrex's customers. This highlights the vetting process that exchanges are using when considering projects to go through the initial exchange offering on their platform. For example, Huobi Prime just launched last week, and they detailed exactly what is required to be selected for inclusion in Huobi Prime. A project must possess a strong team, a progressive business model, impressive financial backing, excellent support in the community, a solid reputation, has not been listed on a major exchange before, and in addition, the Huobi Prime team will weigh the following factors very heavily. The project must have major technological breakthroughs, they should have founders with exceptional reputations in the industry, they should have backing from highly respected thought leaders, and they will heavily consider any projects currently being funded by Huobi Capital or the Global Ecosystem Fund. Now, many of these requirements, these parameters, we can look these things up ourselves. We can read through a roadmap, a white paper, a website, we can look people up on LinkedIn, but the exchanges, when looking at a project entertaining an IEO, will inherently be more rigorous than we can ever be. They'll be able to ask questions and get answers that we simply just can't get. Undoubtedly, they're going to sit down with a team and interview them based on some very strict parameters. Frankly, this is what should have been happening 2 years ago. Assuming the due diligence of the Huobi Prime team or any of the other IEO platforms, this should be introducing an improved level of quality to the space not seen in the ICO boom. The reputation of the exchanges is on the line regarding the quality of the projects launched. And need I remind you that they're facing some stiff competition from the legacy institutions quickly entering the space. What's more is that there's immediate liquidity following the exchange launch. But at the end of the day, there are still big risks involved with this model. Lest we forget, we are still dealing with ICOs in this model. Yes, better vetted, more liquid, and all around likely higher quality ICOs, but ICOs nonetheless. In much of the world, there is a regulatory gray zone regarding ICOs. This alone is one of the biggest detracting factors of IEOs, and the principal reason I'm staying away from them. Those familiar with this channel know that I'm a big proponent of STOs, security token offerings, because they enforce compliance and they are comprised of equity offerings. Two things that ICOs or IEOs will never have, at least in the short term. Furthermore, an enterprise level pump and dump is still a pump and dump. Not to mention, the reason the largest exchanges are all jumping on the IEO bandwagon is not a purely altruistic reason. They certainly have the ulterior motive of propping up the value of their native token, which is often required for the IEO offering. For example, the required holding for Huobi Prime is holding 1,000 Huobi tokens. That's a couple $1,000s at today's prices. And quite simply, Huobi Prime will not be an option for millions of retail investors with micro accounts below $1,000 because of this arbitrary restriction that is meant to artificially enforce scarcity on the Huobi token. Next, we also have to talk about the risk of token issuance going through what is essentially an ICO pump and dump, otherwise known as a shitcoin waterfall, where initial investors in the project and the exchange have large holdings which are released onto the market immediately following the issuance. Just because exchanges like Huobi have flattened the coin release process does not mean there's not immediate and serious pump and dump risk. Lastly, the transparency of the token holders at the time of the exchange launch needs to be made clear. Both the exchange and the early backers of the project need to be able to demonstrate that their tokens are properly vested and locked up to avoid mass release to the market after launch, crashing the price of the coin. So, looking at the IEO from a top-down view, it's clear that there's a growing trend of exchange launch projects, which in theory is a step up from the ICO, and that there's more rigor and quality and due diligence by the platform as they're staking their reputation on the projects they launch. But there's major caveats still inherent in this process, and it remains unclear whether this is enough of a step away from the unregulated ICO towards a model with greater transparency and investor protection. Let it be clear that I'm explicitly in favor of models that enforce strict vetting, that streamline the fundraising process, and overall seek to correct the issues inherent with the ICO. But I am not in favor of models that replace a problem with another problem. I do see IEOs as a good step forward for the industry, but at the same time, I think it's a case of 2 steps forward, 1 step back. There are major caveats inherent with this model, and while it could introduce new liquidity, some new vigor into the market that is clearly dead right now, understand that there are major caveats that need to be respected if you're going to participate in this new model. Please do your due diligence, please do your research, do not chase hype, do not chase trends. Personally, I'm taking a wait and see approach. I want to observe how IEOs continue to evolve, and I'm interested to see what their overall place will be in the industry. But that being said, I think they demonstrate even more clearly the need for a better fundraising model that is more compliant. I think we are well on our way. And if anything, the initial exchange offering gives me confidence that we are heading in the right direction, even if it's not straightforward. So what do you think? What's your opinion of IEOs? And do you plan to participate in some? Or are you skeptical of them and willing to take a pass? We discuss things like this every day in our Ready Set Crypto Omnia community, which you can find on our website. Omnia is our service that combines all of our classes and our daily newsletter, along with our private mastermind group, so it's a really great package. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Cheers.